So one way you can study the health of the stream is looking at what lives in it. And you can study some critters called macroinvertebrates. Here's some pictures of some common ones. So what does macroinvertebrate mean? Well, macro means big, which means you don't need a microscope to see them. And invertebrate means something without a backbone. So everybody, stand up, do this with me. We're gonna be macroinvertebrates. Okay, ready? Macro. Invertebrate, I've not got a backbone. Woo! A lot of flying insects that you might see actually lay their eggs in the water. This is a mayfly, and this is its baby, the mayfly nymph. The mayfly nymph lives in the bottom of the stream, and that is a macroinvertebrate. This is an adult dobson fly, and this is the macroinvertebrate, or the baby, dobson fly larva. These critters live on the bottom of the stream, and they're really important because they can tell us about water quality. For example, scientists like to group macroinvertebrates into categories based on how sensitive they are to pollution. In your watershed journal, you have a sheet that looks like this, and you notice there's macroinvertebrates listed in 3 columns. Group 1 is sensitive, Group 2 is somewhat sensitive, and Group 3 is tolerant. Macroinvertebrates in Group 1, like the mayfly, are super sensitive, and so they can only live in clean water. Macroinvertebrates in Group 2, like this damselfly larva, are somewhat sensitive to pollution, so they can live in somewhat polluted water. And macroinvertebrates in Group 3 are very tolerant to pollution. They can live in pretty dirty water. So what scientists do is when they go to a stream, they collect a bunch of different critters, tally them up into the different groups, and then they can get an idea of how healthy the stream is. We're going to be exploring what lives in Bullskin Run. But first, I have to get suited up to get in the creek. Aha! Now that I look like a potato, I'm ready to go. So what I have here is something called a D-net, shaped like the letter D. And what I'm going to be doing is using this to try to collect critters that are on the bottom of the stream. So I'm going to start looking for them over here where the water is moving really fast. This is called a riffle. With that churning water, there's more dissolved oxygen in the riffle. So that's a great place for macroinvertebrates to hang out. So what I'm going to be doing is using my D-net to bump along the bottom of the stream and try to see if any critters wash down. So another way I can try to get macroinvertebrates is by kind of stirring up the substrate above my net. So what I'm using my foot to do is kind of scrape around and see if I can dislodge any critters on the bottom. So with that, I found this guy and this little guy right here. So what I also am going to do is I'm going to use this scrub brush and I'm going to scrub the bottom of rocks to see if I can dislodge any more critters. I'm going to do it right in front of my net. So since it's so hard to see if there's anything in here, what I can do is I can turn my net upside down in this dish and kind of rinse it out like that, and then see if something's wiggling in there. So this is my collection of the macroinvertebrates in Bullskin Run. We are going to be using a special tool called a dichotomous key to help us identify each critter. To identify a critter, you start at the top of the key and choose one of 2 options that best fits your critter. You continue to follow the key down until eventually you just get to one option, which hopefully matches the critter that you are trying to identify. Follow along in your watershed journal and check off the macroinvertebrates that we find. Let's try this guy first. We start at the top. To use the key, does this critter have a shell or no shell? To identify a critter, you start at the top of the key and choose one of 2 options that best fits your critter.
Or no legs?
You continue to follow the key down
until
eventually you just get to one option.
Does he have 10 or more legs, 4 pairs of legs, or 3 pairs of legs? Well, if we count, there are actually 3 pairs of legs. Next, we go down again. Does he have wings or no wings? It doesn't appear that he has wings, so we're going to follow the no wings line. Finally, does he have no obvious tail, 1 or 2 tails, or 3 tails? It looks like he has no obvious tail. Does he look like any of these critters? If you said dragonfly larva, you are correct. Let's try the next critter. First, shell or no shell. This critter has a shell. Now we look to see if it has a single shell or a double shell. This is a single shell. Now we look to see which way the shell opens, and it looks like it opens on the left. So, it is a pouch snail.
Let's try this one. Does it have a shell or no shell? No shell. Legs or no legs? No legs. With tentacles, brushes, or tails? Worm-like or microscopic? He definitely has tentacles. Does he look like any of these? He looks like a cranefly larva. Way to go! Here are 4 pictures of macroinvertebrates that we also found in the stream. It is your job to use the dichotomous key to identify them. After you identify them, check them off in your watershed journal. Afterwards, add up the number of species and multiply it by the number shown in the column. Then, write all the index values on these lines to get the total index value. Finally, use the total index value to check off the aquatic life quality rating for our stream. Don't copy my sheet, this is just an example.